I want to share with you this morning, and the topic, just in case you wonder how we came about it, one of you asked me a question. Not only did you ask me a question, you gave me an article and wrote a synopsis. So I figured, all right, if you're going to take the time to do that, I can try and answer your question. But first, I'm going to share with you, this is Thomas Shepard. Where's Judith? Did you have him as one of your teachers? Thomas Shepard? Tom, right. So I did too, and he's now a retired minister, but I'm going to share some wisdom from Reverend Tom. It's called Job Description. While sitting alone in an ornate house of worship, drinking the stained glass and marble statuary, a little lightheaded from the thick incense, and a little drunk with the sensory input from the golds and scarlets and purples, just before I arose to flee this place of excruciating beauty, Jesus slipped into the pew beside me. How great was your song, right? Always synchro divinity. Jesus slipped into the pew beside me. He sighed. It's a little embarrassing. I turned to him like it was the most commonplace of all occurrences to chat with the second person of the Trinity. You mean all the celebration and praise your name business? Jesus nodded. They call me Lord, Lord. But all I ever wanted in life was to awaken people to the beauty already within them. He chuckled, and a snuggle with Mary Magdalene. But you didn't hear that from me. Why not stop the madness? I said. Call a press conference. Jesus shook his head. They need to believe that God loves them, even if they have to make a good Jewish boy like me into a god. I leaned back, feeling the hard wood of the pew, and I said, you can't bail? No, Jesus said, I have to play the role. It keeps them looking beyond the daily scramble. He smiled faintly. It's a cross I'll have to bear. Is there anything I can do? Maybe write something, tell people, lighten up on you? They won't believe it. They think God is out there in the sky, in some heavenly dimension. They haven't a clue that all the draped altars, flickering beeswax, and spiced incense are for them, not me. I frowned. Get out of here. No, really, Jesus insisted. It's all about them finding the Christ within, like I did. You really are a nice God figure. I have to admit, close to perfect. Think so, Jesus smiled. You should talk to my mother. What would our loving mothers say, huh? So the question that was asked to me, was Jesus real? Was Jesus a real person on the earthly realm? Now, I thought about that in ministerial school. I wanted proof. Show me the proof. There's nothing in writing in his own hand that we know of. And we know that the Catholic Church says that there is a cloth, a linen cloth, that fell from his body that was used to wrap him when he was put in the tomb. And there might be some authenticity to that statement. And I thought, is that the only tangible evidence that we have of a man named Yeshua, Joshua, Jesus? So I love when you ask me questions. That gives me an opportunity to dive a little deeper. And I was a little bit curious. If you think about during that time of the Romans, the oppression of the Jewish people, the Romans kept meticulous records about everything. They kept records about the weather, about politics, about how the roads were built. And yet we can only find two sources that mention Jesus. Don't you wonder, with all those rabbis, all those priests, and all the work they used to do, No written records. Tacitus. Tacitus is the Roman historian, lived from 56 to 118 Common Era. Think about the dates. We think Jesus was born somewhere around 6 or 7 BCE, or yes, before Common Era, and that he probably was crucified, according to the records, between 30 and 32 Common Era. So Tacitus was born 20 years after this. So he probably didn't write coming out of the cradle, probably another 20 years later. And this is what he says. Nero created scapegoats to blame the great fire in Rome. The Christians got their name from the Christ, who during the reign of Tiberius was executed by Pontius Pilate. For a while, everything was quiet, and then that deadly superstition arose again. Not only did it break out in Judea, but that evil traveled to Rome. Did you get that? That Jesus movement that was called a deadly superstition, because what happened to the early Christians? Think about 30, 32 CE. What was happening to the followers of Jesus? They were being persecuted. They were dying. They were thrown in with the gladiators, the wild animals. This was not going to take place of the Roman emperor who was looked at as a god. These people were being tortured. And being tortured, they became martyrs. And instead of that defeating the Christian movement, what happened? It grew. Who are these people that are willing to put their lives on the line for something they believe? And then we have to look at his own disciples, because there's no record for a little while, almost another 50 to 80 to 100 years, about his disciples. Who said deny him 3 times? Who was that? Peter. Peter, who represented faith. Peter, one of his top disciples. Josephus. There was Josephus, the Jewish historian. He was from 38 to 100 CE, Common Era. Again, born at least 8 years after this alleged crucifixion. Probably didn't write, coming right out of the womb. Give him another 25, 30 years. Now, the interesting part about Josephus is he was one of the leaders of the destruction during the Second Temple when it came down. He's captured and turns his reports into a written record that is appeasing to the Romans. Now, think about it. When the Romans got angry with you, what did they do? Crucified you, stoned you. Well, it's actually the Jews that would stone each other. But the Romans crucified or threw them in with the gladiators. So Josephus must be good enough to take him out of the Jewish realm, of which he was a participant, and allow him to write history for the Romans. So he's captured, turns his reports into a written record that is appeasing to the Romans. Josephus says, about this time there lived Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one sought to call him a man. For he was one who wrought surprising feats and was a teacher of such good people that they accepted him gladly. He won over many of the Jews and the Greeks. They called him the Messiah. When Pilate, upon hearing him accused by men of the highest standing amongst us, remember, he's a Jew, had condemned him to be crucified, those who had in the first place come to love him did not give up their affection for him. On the 3rd day he appeared to them to restore life, for the prophets of God had prophesied these and countless other marvelous things about him. And the tribe of the Christians, so called after him, still have not disappeared to this day. So now we have Josephus, the Jewish historian, and we have Tacitus, the Roman historian. So my question becomes, if there was a physical man named Yeshua, Joshua, Jesus, is that what we today follow when we talk about the Christian teachings? Does it really matter to you that there was an individual that was called Jesus? Does it affect how you live your daily life? Does it affect how you interact with other people? If I were to ask you, and I will, what one of your favorite teachings are of Jesus, what are they? Say it again. It is not I, but my Father. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The Beatitudes.
Pick up your mat and sin no more. Your faith has healed you.
Pick up your mat and sin no more. Your faith has healed you.
And in the end,
Forgiveness. So when we look at these teachings, these rich teachings, does it really matter to you that there was an individual named Jesus who brought these teachings? Because we know many of the teachings have been transformed. Scribes came in and they changed them. They changed other parts of the teachings, like the order of cleanliness. Before you entered a temple, what you had to do to wash your hands, bathe your feet. Was that important to the master teacher we called Jesus? Did he not say, that which you put into your mouth is of no matter compared to that which comes out of your mouth? Yes? So we believe that a lot in Unity. We talk about our thoughts and mind produce after their kind. What we think about, what we focus on, what we concentrate on. Was he the only mystic that taught such revolutionary ideas? Again, we had Thich Nhat Hanh, we had Buddha, and they were all talking about this common thread of loving each other, being kind to each other, being in service to each other. So then I start to examine, why did the Christian movement make it? What do you think? They just kept at it. They just kept at it. It wasn't working for most of them, was it? There were some powerful people, but there were powerful people who didn't want it too. And they shifted their mindset because the Christian people, the movement, kept coming. They wanted to talk about how to take care of the widows, how to love your neighbor, how to honor the God presence inside each one of us. And that was bigger and stronger than how you washed your feet, what you put in your mouth, who you sat with at the dinner table. And these teachings have lived because they're solid. It's something we can believe in. When times get hard and we don't know where to turn our faith, if you have that still moment, when Gabriel Nelson played the bowls for us, that intonation, that vibration, when you can come to that place and know, I am God. How does that feel? For some of us, it might feel blasphemous. If you were raised in the church, you certainly wouldn't have said that in some of the more conservative denominations. And Jesus said to the people, it is not me alone that does these works, but I go to the Father. I go to the God of my understanding. Do you go to the God of your understanding, where you can hear that still small voice or feel within your vibration that it's going to be okay? Doesn't look like it right now, but it's going to be okay. To know this. Another one of Jesus' teachings that many of you probably know is turn the other cheek. Now, what does that mean to you? A new perspective. So if someone smacked you on one side, you think he meant turn it to the other? If you didn't get me one way, get me the other? No, forgiveness is a big one. Forgiveness. Another way to look at people, that small child, when I used to teach before our uniteens, which are pre-teenagers, sometimes you'd have those rowdy little children, the unikids they called them, and the ones that would really act out the strongest, the ones that had to wail and throw a fit. Can you get that mama bear gene going and just encircle them? Today it's probably hard, but back in my day you could hug them, hold them, just feel that angst of that child, that person, and just wrap your arms around them. And what do you think they did? They just calmed down because somebody was there for them. somebody could wrap their arms around them no matter what kind of day they had and love them. Isn't that the message that transcends generations, transcends lifetimes? This same movement has changed, been corrupted, been revitalized, has been re-enlightened. 2,000 years later, we're still talking about one person who made a difference. Who are you in someone's life to make that difference? Can you go up to a Michelle when she's having a really rough day, or a Madeline, someone who's just lost somebody very close to them, someone who got in a car accident, someone who the plane flight just didn't work all freaking weekend? Can you be with that person? Can you see with those eyes of God? I am God. Is that within you? Is that why we gather on a Sunday, on a Wednesday, at events to share in fellowship? Because you could be anywhere. I don't think cartoons happen anymore Sunday morning, so maybe not that. But there's a lot of ballparks open. There's a lot of other events going on. And when you come together in a group like this, in this common denomination, there is some thread that connects all of us. What is it for you? Love? Community? Oh boy, there's a teacher for you. Collegiality? Relationship? Acceptance. That's a big one. You see me, I see you. I hear you. You have a voice here. This is what we say community is all about. It's not about all the rules and the dogma. It's not about how you bathe your feet or who you sit with. As a matter of fact, we're kind of the opposite here. I'm looking at doing a grant, and it's actually a Homeland Security grant backed by the federal government, but I got to go through the state to get there. And one of the requirements is DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Well, guess what got outlawed in the state of Florida? And I thought, okay, people, let's get real. This is how I actually asked for a federal grant that has to go through the state. And so when I was on the phone with a guy from Washington, D.C., that has been managing this Homeland Security grant for more than 15 years, and I said, you don't have to worry about that with us. You ought to come see. We got a female minister. We have people from all walks and stages and orientations in our congregation. If you want an example of DEI, we're still working on some other pieces of it. You just come on in. The door's open. The door's open. I think this is why that thread of the message that I understand is the message of Jesus is acceptance, is loving, is compassion. It is to be there for one another, times that are good and times that are hard. So that when we have those one moment, just that one moment in time where we lose our own footing, Mary Ellen's right there to shine that light for us. That we don't ever truly feel alone. And if you do feel alone, we have prayer chaplains. You have a minister, and I bet the person right next to you would sit with you and hold that sacred space. This is what I believe the message of Jesus was and why it continues. Because you don't even have to call it Jesus. You can call it light. Did you realize, and I didn't realize this, when we're talking about going into the tomb, representing the darkness, when we talk about how Christmas actually happens in the darkest time of the year, that's a symbolism that the light is coming out of the darkness. That whole light coming out of the darkness is our wisdom. It's us shining within our own reflection what is true for us. You know that whole thing they say, the darkest night of the soul? And what happens after that? The dawn. A new beginning. And that's what we claim to be Easter. It's no matter where you are in life and the transitions and the changes that you're going through, there's going to be a light. There's going to be a light on the other side. A place for you to create from anew, to begin over again. And hold that sacred space. And know that you deserve it. know you actually deserve to be in that sacred space. So as we're beginning to move into our Easter time, and we've been in our Lent season of giving things up, I guess what I want to share is giving up the ways that you feel you ought to be. How's that feel? You know, somebody that you love, that knows you pretty well, just called you out because you're not showing up how they want you to. So maybe we just look at them and hold that sacred space and say, I behold the Christ in you. How does that feel? Can you do it with me? I behold the Christ in you. Yeah, just breathe into that. Let's close those outer eyes. Just take that beautiful breath in. And know that I am of the greatest I am. I am here on purpose. I am here to shine my light. If I'm in the darkness, I'm coming through now. For there is a new beginning. Every day when I open my eyes, I release anything that is not for my highest good. For these blessings that we share with each other, these moments, we behold in one another the Christ. That essence of pure spirit of divine love. And for this we say thank you to the visible, the non-visible, and all that is. And so it is. Amen.